afraid of the dark.
Hello, my listener. Have you ever had any scary stories while fishing? Listen to 4 such stories that actually happened. Don't forget to subscribe, please. Go. Not far from my home in Parsonsfield, Maine, there's a beautiful, secluded lake where I've been fishing for years. Hidden away from roads and houses, it offers perfect privacy, and I've always been the only person there. I usually leave my kayak in the same spot on the shore when I'm not using it. One warm summer evening, after fishing for about an hour and catching several trout that lay in my cooler, dusk was setting in, and I was preparing to head home when I heard noises from the lake's shore. I turned and saw a man standing on the shore, pouring the contents of a barrel into the lake. It looked like he was polluting the lake, and I shouted at him. He glanced at me and then ran into the woods, still pouring the barrel's contents. The liquid appeared dark red to me, though it was already dark, and I couldn't be sure. Feeling uneasy, I decided to leave. I love nature and get angry when people litter or pollute the environment. I couldn't help but shout at the man. But I no longer felt safe and decided to report this to the Department of Environmental Protection. I paddled to my usual spot where I left my kayak and pulled out all my gear before taking the kayak out of the water. As I was covering the kayak, I heard a single crunch nearby, as if someone had stepped on something. I turned around but didn't say anything. I quickly covered the kayak and, instead of leaning it against a tree as usual, left it on the ground. I grabbed my gear and cooler and quickly walked to the road leading to my house. The walk took only a few minutes and I got home. But the whole time I kept looking back, feeling like someone was following me. I quickly stored my gear in the shed and then went inside. I had never locked the door so fast. I washed the trout and put them in the fridge, planning to cook them the next day. I heated some leftovers, and at that moment someone knocked on my front door. I got scared and thought someone had followed me home. My windows were closed, so no one could peek inside, but the person outside knew I was home because my lights were on and my car was in the driveway. The person knocked again and then tapped on the window, saying, "Excuse me, I think you saw me by the lake earlier." I just wanted to explain. I wasn't going to open the door to this person who had followed me home. I threatened to call the police, and he responded in a calm voice, "Sir, if you open the front door, I'll explain everything." I threatened to call the police again, and he left. I locked and secured all the windows in the house and turned on the air conditioner. I also reported the incident to the police and the Department of Environmental Protection. The next morning I heard a noise downstairs and went down with a gun in hand. I saw that the man had broken the window in my living room and entered the house. I ordered him to lie on the floor, and he raised his hands, seeming to want me to calm down. He had a small knife in his hand and said he was leaving. I ordered him to stop, but he ran out of the house. I locked the door and called the police. Officers arrived and began an investigation. I described the man to them as a short, bearded white male with thinning hair and glasses, dressed in a black flannel shirt and black pants. The next morning, my brother came to help me repair the window, and I spent several nights at his house until things settled down. I believe the barrel contained human remains dissolved in some kind of acid. Otherwise, why would this man follow me and try to break into my house? I have loved fishing since early childhood. All the men in my family were passionate about fishing, and we often went fishing together. My father, John, and his brother, Matthew, were especially passionate about it, and their homes were filled with fishing gear, like a fishing show. This story happened to my father and his friends. One day they went fishing at a remote lake that was several hours by boat from the nearest dock. They arrived at the lake early in the morning before the sun had risen and began fishing. The day went well. They caught a lot of fish and drank quite a bit of beer. By evening, a thick fog had descended, and they decided they would have to spend the night on the lake, as it was too dangerous to navigate through the fog. The three friends, Mont, Rich, and Jeff, decided to go ashore to try to find a cell signal and inform their families that they would have to spend the night on the lake. They took flares with them in case they got lost and needed help. They entered the dense forest, lighting their way with their phone flashlights. In the silence, they heard strange clicking sounds surrounding them. These sounds were like a code being transmitted through the forest. They realized that these were not animals but people. They were scared they had stumbled upon a secret meeting or cult. Then there was silence, followed by a rustling and a loud scream filled with pain. They ran back to the boat, and at that moment, more than 10 people dressed in tribal-like clothing with wooden spears emerged from the forest. They ran to the boat with their pursuers close behind. They managed to reach the middle of the lake when their pursuers reached the shore. They launched flares, and in the light of the flares they saw their pursuers, more than 15 people, standing on the shore. They spent the night on the lake, and in the morning the fog lifted, and they were able to return home. Mont, who had been drunk, remembered nothing about the incident. I've been fishing since childhood, and now I'm almost 60 years old. I usually fish alone, like a lone wolf. One day, I decided to go fishing at a secluded lake about an hour's drive from home. I arrived at the lake before dawn and set out on the water to catch the sunrise. As I marveled at the colorful sky and prepared to fish, I noticed some movement on the other side of the lake. Curious, I looked through my binoculars and saw 3 hooded figures digging a hole. At first, I thought they were hiding something, but then they pulled out some objects from the hole and threw them into the lake. I got scared, thinking these people might be dangerous, and considered calling the police. I waited until they left, then paddled to the spot where they had thrown the items. I fished there for about an hour but didn't catch anything. I decided to use a special depth measuring device and found something metallic on the lake bed. I marked the spot and switched to a larger hook. Feeling resistance on the line, I realized I had caught something. Slowly, I pulled my catch to the surface and saw it was a gun. I immediately called the police. They arrived and conducted an investigation, finding several other items on the lake bed: keys, old coins, and a locket with photos. The police said they would inform me if these items were linked to any crime, but I never received a call. A few days later, I heard someone in my yard say, "That's the car." I recognized it. I saw several people walking around my house, but they didn't ring the doorbell and left. I called the police again, but they never found those people. I still wonder why those items were hidden in the hole and then thrown into the lake. In the summer of 2022, I got into fishing. My family had a house by the sea with a lagoon and a small boat. In October, my two friends, Kevin and Eerie, and I decided to go on a fishing weekend. Our boat was being repaired, so we fished from the shore and the pier. We fished all night, and around 1 a.m., a hooded man approached us. He asked what we were doing, and we replied that we were fishing. He just stood there watching us, and then walked away. We thought he was going to rob us, but left when I caught a fish. After a while, we heard my car alarm go off. We ran to the car and saw that the tires were slashed and the window was broken. We immediately called the police and hid in the woods as we heard rustling in the bushes. The police arrived and began searching for the robber. They found a large knife and some fingerprints. The robber had stolen my wallet, cash, and Kevin's fishing gear. The officers said we did the right thing by running and hiding, as the man could have harmed us. We spent the rest of the night at the house, and in the morning, Arian drove us home. I was very scared by the incident and haven't fished since.